Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being your show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Superman and Lois. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, Anderson, being a complete and utter tool that he is working with Allie. In fact, he actually went to the other side, the inverse world, and met the other Allie, and the other Allie's like, right, tell my Allie, come on through, let's do it, let's make this happen. So Allie gathers up all her supporters, everyone that's a part of this inverse situation, and they go to the mines, and everyone's just like so happy about, oh yeah, let's do it. I'm like, the fact is one person's up, floating up, and then another person, I'm like, shouldn't you wait for the first person to go through to see, like, let's test the water? But hey, you're in belief, and you're just like, and just everyone's going one at a time. Well, the first person goes, and like 2 or 3 people goes next. And then it's not even Allie. Oh, Allie didn't jump on it immediately. I think that speaks volumes. It's like, oh, cool, I'm the cult leader, but you go first. You go first. But to be fair, she wanted to jump head first too, but then she was like, I'm gonna test the water. Oh, it's not working. This isn't right. Because that didn't seem like they were fusing with the version of themselves in the inverse world. It seemed like they were literally getting disintegrated. And it's like, oh, we're floating. There's no stopping this. I'm like, oh God. And luckily, Superman was able to get there in time. But then, like you saw, Anderson inject himself with his inhaler, with his XK inhaler. I'm like, what is he going to do with that? Like, I was like, oh, is he actually going to try and save the day or something? But I'm like, the entire time, I'm like, no, it looks like Clark's doing all the saving. Oh, he's just going to yank the pendant and go. Because it's like, cool, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go over there, I'm going to fuse with my other self, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to become a god, I'm going to come back over here and probably kill Superman. And that's what I'm feeling. It's like, oh, like, they want to strip me of everything I worked so hard for because of this, because of Superman, it's all his fault. I've got to kill Superman. Well, even with XK, I'm not strong enough to go toe-to-toe with Superman. Fuse with myself, become a god, that's the solution. That's the only thing that makes sense to me why he jumped into it. So it's like, cool, didn't go the way Allie expected it to. Granted, she would have probably been safe because she had the pendant. But he's also safe probably because, like, well, that energy probably can't kill him because he's enhanced because of the X-kryptonite. So who knows if it's just a pendant enough that can protect you, or does it you need not only the pendant? Well, because the pendant's necessary probably for the fusion process, but crossing over, you probably need an enhanced body. So that's why I'm curious what's going to happen to Clark, because his doppelganger is dead now. So what would that do to him? I'm curious, like, what would that mean for him? Like, if you were to bleed those worlds together, everyone would fuse with potentially their counterparts, right? But also, it seemed like, and what it hinted to, like, Lois and John might be dead in that world. So what would happen to them? Would Jordan be the only one that fused with, like, another version of himself? Because potentially Clark, John, and Lois's versions are dead. I mean, did Bizarro kill Lana before coming over to this world? Who knows? But I mean, they fought it out, but we don't know if that ended with him killing her. Probably did, but we don't know. So that's really interesting. But yeah, Chrissy's like freaked out, being like, were we the only ones you saved? Because the only people that were saved were Allie, Chrissy, and another dude. And it's like, right, only 3 people were saved. And it's like, Chrissy's like very thankful. And obviously they don't know if Lucy was one of the people. So Sam ends up interrogating Allie, and and that's the thing too, I'm like, you're so smug, you're so smug, and that's what makes you so annoying, because you're not regretful, and like, why are you so smug? Like, everything went up in smoke, like, your plan didn't work out, Anderson took the pendant and bounced, like, why are you so smug about this? But then it's like, later on, jumping around, Lucy returning, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why you're smug, because you had a failsafe. The most important fail-safe, just in case things went awry. Because that was heartbreaking, because, like, Sam, after, like, having Allie mess with him that much, which is also, like, I guess that should have been the sign that Lucy was still alive, is the fact is that she was poking at him like that. Because you would think she had some regrets, but I guess she's thinking, like, right, some sacrifices are necessary for the greater good. It's like, right, those people died, but so the rest of us can ascend. So it's just, the ends justify the means in her mind, probably. But I'm like, God, could you be a little less smug? I mean, come on. Especially because she loves torturing him like that. It's just like, right. She acts like I don't know why in her mind she thinks she's a good person. A good person wouldn't do that, wouldn't torture her father, being like, oh yeah, you've always been afraid that your girls are gonna walk out on you like your wife did. It's like, Jesus. It's because sadly, like, Lucy gave her all the ammunition she needs to, like, tear Sam apart. And that's the thing for Sam. He's like, right, ever since your mom left, I haven't been the same. You girls haven't either. And he feels like he failed. Like, if anything happened to Lucy, it's my fault. You know, you were right the entire time that Allie was a cancer and I didn't do anything. I was so scared of losing her because of that element of like, right, I don't want to push too hard. Because, yeah, him and Lois had their strenuous relationship, but they were still in each other's lives regardless. He felt like things between him and Lucy were even strenuous, so that's why he tried to stay neutral. That's why he tried not to pick a side, while he kind of sided more often than not with Lucy, because he was scared to lose her. And now it's like, right, she's gone now, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. And then, like, Lois is trying to she's trying to be strong. She's like, we don't have enough information, we don't know. And she even tried to be like, it was Lucy's choice. It's like, yeah, but I didn't help that choice. Like, I didn't help put Lucy in a position where she would have made the better choice, you know. I wasn't there as a father for either one of you, and I kind of failed, and I have to live with that. And Lois is, like I said, trying to keep up this strong front, and she's searching everywhere in Lucy's apartment. It's like, oh, come on, like, there's got to be something. And Clark is like, I've already checked, and she's like, she can't be gone. You know, she wouldn't do this to us, like, just leave with just a text after our mom walked out on us like that. There's no way she'd let that happen. And so Clark is there holding her. She's just like, I've lost too much. And it's just like, well, you're not going to, I'm not going anywhere. You got me. And I love that. And I thought it was beautiful. And then Lucy showing up later, I was like, suspicious. That's not Lucy, is it? She went through and somehow came back, didn't she? Like, that's her after she fused with her other side. But it turns out, like, her story didn't make sense to me. Because it's like, if you really were hidden or whatever, why not? Well, because she said she bailed out last second after everything. But I'm like, I guess she was implying, like, once she saw the people in hazmat suits, she walked away then. But I'm like, it just seemed weird. Like, you never got... Because the thing is, like, I don't think they bothered, like, asking the questions, like, yeah, why didn't she go to a payphone or something? Like, didn't ask the person to drop her off, hey, can I use your cell phone, please? Like, there's inconsistency there. So I'm like, that should have been the sign. But, like, I was immediately like, oh, something's off here. She's not... And it's like, nope, she is the same Lucy. It's just she was the failsafe. She wasn't involved there just in case things went sideways. I'm sure Allie was like, don't worry. Once I go through, become the god and everything, like, I'll help you come through. It's like, but Allie's only helping herself. But, I mean, once again, that's a cult for you. Warping your mind to be like, no, she's right. She has all the answers. She's going to help fill this void inside of me by helping me fill the void within myself. But, it's frustrating because you're like, no, Lucy. And she drugs her own dad, and it's like, she's like, I'm sorry. It's like, Jesus, Lucy, you... And it's just like, your dad and your sister were so happy because they're like, right, we messed up before, but now it's like, no. You're clear of Allie. Allie's going to be locked up for a long time. Now we finally have this second chance to make things right. We're all on the same page. Let's work together. And it's like, no, Lucy's still on Allie's side. And it's like, I don't know what's going to happen to break that control. Because she's going to basically need to be deprogrammed because she's too in. Allie's going to have to do something to break Lucy's trust in her, because until then, Lucy's all in with Allie. Like, she will betray everyone. So, we'll ultimately have to wait and see how that plays out. Another element to this episode is the Natalie and John Henry Irons situation. John's better now, but the problem is that early on there's some confusion. He's like, oh, spend time with my two girls. And it's like, and I was like, that's not mom. Mom's still dead. He's like, yeah, I know. You're like, oh boy. So obviously Natalie's worried like there might be something there, but Clark's like, no, it's going to be okay. And she's like, you don't know that. Like, this is all on you for like letting this happen. And now it's a lot for everyone to kind of juggle and deal with. So, you know, Clark doesn't really know how to be around Natalie because Natalie's like, I don't know how to be around you. Regardless of anything, like, we're supposed to live here happy, everything's fine, hunky-dory. It's like, no, you still look like the guy who killed my mom. And now it's like, regardless of your intentions and stuff like that, I can't still help but feel like every time you're around, my dad's going to get hurt. Like, even if you don't mean for him to get hurt, it's still going to be a byproduct. Him trying to help you got him hurt, almost killed. And it's like, I've already gone through it enough. Losing my mom, I thought I lost my dad. I can't bear losing him. He's the only thing I have left in this world. Potentially your entire world might be gone, because we don't know what that is that brought her here. I'm trying to remember, it don't look like it was the antimatter wave during Crisis. So like her world might be gone. That might have been the Crisis event that happened, and her dad just happened to bridge that gap. Because she said like her AI Hetty was like, oh, currently we're in between like the space between I think dimensions. So because this is like the first time like really potentially acknowledging, like, obviously like they've acknowledged the multiverse. Lois and Clark have already dealt with the multiverse, so like Crisis kind of has already happened. Or because like I said, there's hints to this being the same like Arrowverse continuity, but they don't really like fully acknowledge it. Like Diggle showing up and stuff like that, yeah, but we also like, I get it from a storytelling perspective and a production, you know, because it's like, right, Melissa Benoist, it's probably done with Supergirl, so it's like they probably don't want to like really deal with that, because it's like, right, Supergirl had her story, like it's that comic book thing of like, right, but it's like he doesn't really acknowledge his cousin's existence really, so that's why I'm like, that's always been that, I need that confirmation, you know. It's like, yeah, like Black Lightning, it took a while, but we eventually got to the point it's like, no, this is a different Earth. They finally acknowledged it. Like I feel like there was hints to it, because that was always meant to kind of be its own separate thing, but it wasn't until Crisis that they were like, yeah, it's on a different Earth. They never fully ever acknowledged it until then, so that's one line I was like, I don't know. So I like I said, I'm leaning towards like, no, this is supposed to be the same Arrowverse Supergirl continuity, but maybe it's not. It seems like it could be and it should be, but who knows. Regardless of that, tangents and all that aside, like that's why I'm trying to figure out whether that was a Crisis thing or was that something else. That energy, that it seemed like that was antimatter, like wiping out the world. So it's like literally you have no world to go back to potentially, and even if you did, it'd be a new version of your world, because the multiverse eventually is spilled back out again. So, well, built back out again, I guess would be the right word. But my point is, like, her dad is all she has, and so Clark talking to John, it's like, right, like, you know, give Natalie time. Like, she doesn't know you like I know you. I know you're different people. I know the good person that you are. So just get to know her. Like, let her get to know Clark Kent. Like, this was all kind of rushed. And even Clark reaches out to her and is like, right, it is kind of unfair for us to, like, me to ask you to move in with your dad and, you know, a version of your mom. Like, it's weird. And I can't expect you to be completely copacetic with this world and just everything. So I have a friend who has an old place that you and your dad can live. That way you can have your space to yourself, someplace that's your own. And if you decide you want to get to know me, we can get to know each other. So, and for her, like, thinking back to that, you know, it's like, right, she was in hibernation for 6 months so that, you know, while Hetty searched for her dad. And it's like, right, she held on to that hope of her dad. And it's like, right, this is us. Finding her dad again, being with her dad, that's the only thing she needs to be happy. So it's like, right, together, like, I'm with my dad, then this is all I need right here, right now, you know? So that's beautiful in its own right, but I think the thing is that's not going to be sustainable in the sense of she is going to, like, I think because that's also the thing too, you can't, like, rely on one single person to be all your happiness. Once again, I've learned that in relationship like lesson, that's one of life's like hard lessons I learned the hard way at a younger age of like, and it's not something I really fully processed and dealt with until like I was in my early 20s. I was like, right, I kind of made I kind of have a tendency to make my girlfriends my like that's, you know, it's like, right, if I'm not around them and then just kind of like, oh, like I'm kind of almost like, oh, in sleep mode, like I'm just kind of going through life on autopilot till like, oh, hey, you're, you know, and that's no way to be in a relationship nor, you know, live your life. And I'm not saying Natalie's doing that, and obviously it's different. This is a parent rather than a significant other, but I'm curious, is it going to be a thing of she's not fully going to live her life because she thinks like, right, just live with my dad is all I need. I think I might be like reading too much, and I think she'll find a balance where it'll be okay. But it's just like that saying like, oh, all I need is my dad and I'll be happy. It could just be significant of like, oh, like I have my dad, everything's good, and I can find that life balance. But I hope it's just not going to be like I'm going to stay with dad and just going to cut myself off from the rest of this world. I hope that's not where it's going in, you know. I mean, if they do that storytelling wise, like, you know, I understand they will do that so that she can grow, but I hope that's not the mentality she has. I don't think it is, but there's still, you know, part of me wondering if that is. So we'll ultimately have to wait and see. So there's that angle. Then there's the whole situation with John and Jordan. Obviously, John's still in trouble because for him, it's like, no matter what he does, he feels his dad's disappointment. And he almost says like, yeah, the dad hates me. He won't even look at me. It's like, your dad doesn't hate you. He's just trying to understand your behavior. And so am I. Like, why you would do this. Why you won't give up the person that you're, who supplied you with the drugs. And that's the thing. John's trying to handle and shoulder this all on his own. Once again, you are a family. I get it. He's scared, like, if the truth comes out, Candace is going to get in trouble, and like so much of her life depends on this. And it's like, right, her dad's broke, like this, like if they will lose it all if she doesn't do what she's doing. So she's selling drugs out of necessity. Some points in that didn't seem 100% like necessity. It just seemed, but also it's, I don't know, because part of me's wondering like how much of that is just kind of like, I don't know, some of her situation didn't present itself as like, oh, I'm struggling, like I'm selling drugs to make sure my family keeps afloat. But I'm also like, because just like, but I guess it's like, right, you're trying to keep yourself in high spirits around John, so of course you wouldn't be like the gloomy drug dealer. But it seems a little off. But hopefully she's not lying. Hopefully that doesn't end up being a case of like, no, like Jonathan got played. But I also think like you should tell your parents, because maybe they could do something to help. It's just like, all right, the reason why I'm not saying anything is because it's Candace. This is what's going on. And if you explain it, I think, especially because Clark ripped him a new one, be like, oh, you have my son. I thought my son had integrity. He does. He's trying to help someone who's in a bad situation, you know. And this is something you learn from like an old school sitcom, that it's like, oh, like, it wasn't my drugs, I was holding the drugs for someone else. It's like, yeah, but you shouldn't get in trouble for someone else. And he tried to explain that, but his mom and his dad weren't quite willing to listen. Plus, he's not quite willing to tell. So that's the rub of it all. And if he explained it was Candace, then it'd be a thing of, okay, but he's like, right, Dad, you can't tell anybody because Candace is going to get in trouble. Yeah, but she made her choices. Yeah, but I want to help her. Like, you want me to do the right thing, right? You instilled in me to be, yes, I made a mistake of taking the drugs, and I'm going to have to pay the consequences for that. But I don't want her to suffer for her trying to make it through, like, you know, her family struggling. And maybe this will be something that comes up with Lana and the election, maybe something along those lines, or, you know, we'll have to wait and see how that ends up playing out. But Jordan, overhearing her talking to that guy, realizes like, wow, so she's in deep with this money situation. Like, that's, oh, Candace is the one. It's like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, right, because I care about her. It's like, oh, you really, because he's almost like, why would you take the fall for her? It's like, right, but it's like, no, he cares about her deeply, and like, you know, so it's like, right, it's like, right, you're not the only one that's allowed to kind of, you know, kind of do crazy stuff for your girlfriend, and he wants to do the same thing because he cares deeply about Candace. So Jordan kind of lets it go. And when that guy shows up later on, when Jonathan's walking her home, I was like, oh, please, Jordan, show up, Jordan, and whoop that ass. And he does. I was like, yeah! I was like, when he was nearby and he could hear what was going on, I was like, yes! Come on! And he does it. He's like, yeah! Bop, 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 bop. Uppercut. I'm like, yeah! Which I'm like, it all comes full circle. Because in small, you know, when his dad was about his age, what did his dad do? He did the whole vigilante thing, you know, saving the day around town as well. And it's almost, you know, even just in the case of this show, but also, you know, there's even the Smallville comparison of like, yeah, like, him like trying to hide his identity while he's like, kicking ass and taking names. And I even love Jonathan being like, you ever go near her again, I'm gonna get him, and he's gonna come like mess you up. And I love that. But it's like, yeah, it's almost, I mean, it plays into the whole like him becoming Superboy, you know. And it's all, like I said, but it's all like reciprocal too, because it's like, right, your dad did the exact same thing, even in the confines of this show, in just a grand scheme of like, you know, on the same network, Smallville. So it's just it's all reciprocal, and I love that. So Problem is, Jordan's in a little bit of an awkward situation because Sarah's like, yeah, so I want to meet up with Aubrey. It's like, wait, what? You mean the same? He's like, yeah. Oh, so you guys are just friends now? It's like, yeah. He's like, I don't know, man. It is weird. It is awkward. It's like, yeah, the girl I kissed, who I say I just want to be friends with, like, I want my boyfriend to, it's like, I mean, I get it, but it's also, like, a little weird, a little awkward, because I'm sure for Jordan, it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it, because it almost feels like it kind of got thrown at you all at once. I get it, because it's also like, but also like, yeah, she helped Sarah through everything. She's like, right, if it wasn't for Audrey, I wouldn't have been able to have, like, I wouldn't be where I am with my dad. I wouldn't have been able to have breakfast with him. Like, me and him are, it's not perfect. I haven't forgiven him, but we're in a better place than we would be if I hadn't talk with Audrey, because Audrey's parents are divorced, so she can help her through this, because she has a perspective that Jordan doesn't. Yeah, Jordan has his own issues, and it's like, oh, your family's perfect. It's like, yeah, they have their issues too, but still. He was already feeling a little awkward about it, but the moment, like, he showed up with, like, a cut on his face and his, like, his hands bruised and, like, up like that, covered in blood, it's like, yeah, I'd have to explain all of that, and I'd rather not, because that'd just be more lying I'd have to do to Sarah, so he avoided not doing. There was already a part of him that was reluctant to go, but he was psyching himself up like, all right, let's do this, and he could have gotten there in time, but he decided not to, and it's just like, didn't know what to do in that situation, so he just snuck back home without letting his parents see, like, what was up either, so. It's even more Smallville-ish, too, because once again, like, obviously, he didn't, well, both this and Smallville, because, like, he doesn't know how to fly, just like Clark didn't know back then, so he's just, like, speeding, like, he's speed running everywhere. That's how Clark got around 95% of Smallville. Well, within the show Smallville and this Smallville. But at the very least, he's still in that complicated space with his parents because, Lois has lightened up a little bit when it comes to it. Like, she's still mad at him, but it's like, right, like, you can't let this whole thing keep going on for so long, Clark. Because Clark's like, how do we know he's not lying? He's actually gotten pretty good at it, considering he was lying to us. None of us got a whiff or a hint of this. Like, if he had never gotten busted, none of us would have ever found out, So that's also the rub of it. Like, I get where he's coming from, but he's just so disappointed, and I think with everything going on, that's why he's just probably a little off-kilter. It makes you wonder, could it also be, and we don't know, having your doppelganger from, like, a mirror world, like, him out of place, also dead, him being in this world probably, like, threw things off balance a little bit anyway, but then you also add in the fact is that he also ended up dead, so maybe that has some effect on Clark that he still doesn't realize yet. Like, maybe that's kind of also why things might be a little off kilter there. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I'm reading too much and thinking too much about that. But it's like, right, you were like, these worlds were the same at one point in time until they split. So it could be a thing of that they are a connection, like, it does something to you if one version of you dies. Like, the whole point is about combining the two, and to become a god, it's like, what happens when one version of you dies? Like, what will that have an effect on the other because the worlds are separate? What happens if the worlds start bleeding over into each other? What happens then? Those type of questions. We'll see if the show really dives into those elements or not. But regardless of it all, John, at the very least, has Jordan by his side during all this. It's like, right, we're the fraternals, and it's like, he's just like, I didn't want you to, like, I already, like, am lying to mom and dad. He's like, I just didn't want to put that burden on you, but he's like, no, I got you. We're in this together, bro. So, at the very least, he has one person that knows the truth about what's going on, So, we'll see how that plays out, how that dynamic continues going forward, so. But other than that, we also have, Lana prepping for the debate, and Emily kind of had to bail at the last second, so she ended up taking up Kyle on his offer, which things are kind of weird and awkward. It's like, oh, is this the new normal? And he's like, Kyle was like, no, it said, I just got here early because I wanted to take you out for breakfast, but probably before, like, going forward, he'd probably avoid coming inside, just because it's like, right, still early days to all of this, because they're not officially divorced yet, they're separated, but still. And so, Or at least I think they're separate. I don't know. Like, I feel like they'd make more of a point if they were like fully divorced. So they're just separated right now. So Kyle asks her questions like, right, the other stuff you got down pat. You know the family value stuff. Like, you know that's going to come up. That's what you got to be prepared for, because Dean's going to lean into that hard. You saw last episode how he played that up. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to attack your credibility. It's like, right, you can't take care of your home. How are you going to take care of this large family that is Smallville? And so he's prepping her for it. It's like, right, you can't avoid the answers. Obviously, she's frustrated. She's like, this is all your fault because of your stupid mistake. Because she's also like, I'm a woman, so it falls back on me like it's somehow my fault because because there is going to be that thing of like, like, you know, because like for her, I'm sure it's going, because I'm sure it's our own, like, it's societal things of like, right, like you couldn't keep your man, like you're the wife, it's kind of your job, like it's some like very archaic like perspective on things that, you know, the household is a lot more complex nowadays, but it is the thing of like, oh, you couldn't hold down the fort, you couldn't keep your family in order, your husband cheated, were you not doing, you know, that her failings as a wife or a mother, like that can be used to be justified, not justified, but someone will be like, oh, that's why your marriage is falling apart. It would fall more on her than it would him, because it's like, because that's also, I'm sure people would have to deal with that too, of like, yeah, if you decide to take back someone, like, oh, how could you take back someone that was a cheater? Like, that's also going to hit people a certain way too. Like, that's also the sad thing. Like, everyone's going to have an opinion about your relationship, especially in a small town like everyone knows everyone. These are people you've grown up with, like lived with for years. Of course they're going to have their judgments. And even Kyle was like, the dude who's the moderator for this is Dean's fishing buddy. You know he's gonna like really go for the jugular with this. Like, you have to be firm with your answers, and so he helps her through it. And it's like, right, she's like, there are just unpredictable things about life. We all experience them, and kind of leaning into that perspective of things, that doesn't take away the fact is that I'm still going to be the best option for Smallville, you know? So Kyle's happy that at the very least it seems like she's ready and prepared. And he took those licks with stride, just drinking his coffee, being like, okay, no, I deserve that. Like, he knows, like, no, I'm 100% in the wrong. If I have to apologize forever and ever, then I will have to apologize forever and ever. And so that's where things kind of are. And he even says, like, right, final question, do you think you could ever forgive your husband? And he's like, no, that was stupid. She's like, no, I appreciate your help. It's just not ready to be in those conversations of like, can she ever forgive Kyle? And turns out he's not at the fire station anymore. He bought his own place. And she's like, no, it's good. It's good. I think that was the right choice. And that's the thing of like solidifying it even more, because it's like, right. He's like, yes, it's a temporary, at least almost being like, yeah, but I'm not fully settled with this being the end of our marriage. But at the same, because like him being at the fire station, staying there, it seemed temporary and not permanent. But actually having a home, considering the circumstances, it's like, right, like if Sarah ever wants to come over, it should probably be like an actual home and not just a firehouse. But also it solidifies it. It makes it even more real that, oh, this is what's happening. This is the new norm. That element to it as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the Cushing family handles this going forward, you know? So it's going to be interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.